I was in a writers group and somebody asked, like, let's just share things we're proud of. And another woman on the group said, I'm so proud to say I'm 6 weeks sober. And it was such a pivot for me to be like, Wait, we can be proud of that." And I was 11 months sober at the time, and that was so enlightening to me because it gave me such a fresh perspective on what I was doing, that this wasn't something to be ashamed of, that if anything, this has completely changed my life for the better, and at that point, I didn't wanna go back.
And here we are with Celeste. Hi.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know why my voice has to go up like 3 octaves. Like, it's like performance voice,
Yeah.
not
We
even
go
how I
from
talk.
regular level to, "I'm excited now." Yep. It's just natural.
I really am excited. Before I hit record, I was telling you that I had read this really long interview. I think it was for Scary Mommy. Could that have been correct?
That's a recent one, yeah.
Yes. And I was like, "Oh my god." I was constantly going, "Same, Celeste. I can't wait to talk to you. I have such a similar experience. Just, tell me about I don't know, where do you wanna jump in? How far back do you wanna go? Let's skip to, like, when did you first realize that alcohol was a problem?
It is something that took so long for me to figure out, for several reasons. One being my dad was a hardcore alcoholic, like Nicolas Cage leaving Las Vegas. And to me, that's what drinking problem meant. Something like that guy. And so I figured as long as I don't ever get to that level, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have a drinking problem. Even though alcohol was causing more and more problems, I think that's where the disconnect really messed with me. And, in the 2010s, there wasn't a lot of talk about gray area drinking. That wasn't something I was aware of. I grew up, even in my own home, understanding either you're an alcoholic or you're fine and you can drink as much as you want,
Right.
as crazy as that sounds to me now. So, I figured I had proven myself to be in the fine category. So even as the problems just grew and grew and grew, so, I look back now and I can say like, "Oh, that was a convincing moment. That was a convincing moment." But I think at the time, it was so easy for me to either say, "But I'm not Nicolas Cage," or for me to say, "This is a part of motherhood." Mommy needs wine. This is all we get. We are martyrs in every other situation in life now, except for this. We get this one thing. Do not take this one thing away from me. So it wasn't until I woke up one day, went to work Monday morning, and I thought I was having a stroke, uh, that I think everything kinda hit me all at once, that I might not be an alcoholic like my dad, but if I kept doing what I was doing, I would get there. And that it was a panic I was having a panic attack, but at the time, I thought I was having a stroke like my dad did, um, which completely altered his life. We talk about my dad's life before the stroke and after the stroke. So I saw that firsthand, what that can do to someone, and that realization that every time I was drinking, I was playing with fire, that hit me all at once. that one fateful day that, is now my day one.
I think it's what you're saying is so relatable to a lot of women, and I am so glad that we're changing the conversation. Uh, I talk in my book about even back in my 20s, I had a good friend who was what you would think of as an alcoholic. Even in our late 20s, he would have 2 drinks and he would already be slurring. His personality would kind of change. And I remember so many times just thinking, I'm so glad I'm not like that. Like, I'm so glad it takes a lot of drinking for me to be drunk, and I just saw myself as so separate from that experience, and it took so long for me too to go. And even when I first quit drinking, and I'm imagining you had the same thing, I wasn't like, I'm an alcoholic and I have to quit drinking. My thinking was more like, I don't know what to define this as, but it's not getting better. And if I continue to drink the way I'm drinking, I will continue to make bad decisions because for some reason, which I now call alcoholism, not that it matters what we call it, I think, but for some reason, when I drink, when I put alcohol in my system, I lose my good judgment, and I think I'm not drunk when I'm drunk. And that's all it took for me to just go, I just can't drink. I'm not safe. But it still
Yeah.
took a long time for me to go, oh, I am what my friend was in our 20s. I am Nicolas Cage. It just looks different. It presents differently.
Yeah. And I don't think we hear that story enough. I think a lot of the movies and TV shows we see around addiction and alcoholism is kind of that tropey storyline. And we don't see, and it's getting better, but I do wish we saw more of the complex drinkers that who have the negative outcomes as a result. I couldn't stand the shows where m- the main character would drink to their heart's content the night before and then wake up, you know, fresh as a daisy the next morning. Because that's not relatable at all. Um, but to have kind of these more complex characters that can help women especially see, that there is this full spectrum of addiction, and most of us wind up in that gray area.
And I thought I was enjoying my drinking. I really think that up until maybe 2 months before I quit, I was like, "This is fun." I'm bonding with other moms, and people that aren't drinking are not having fun, they're missing out. I didn't think of it as something that I had to do, until towards the end when I was really actively trying to stop drinking, and every day I would come up with a reason that I needed to drink. I mean, it was bad. I would be really sick. I remember one time having the flu and, having to take NyQuil at night, but also having to have my wine and telling myself, well, it kills germs. That's not alcoholism. That's just like self care, trying to like not be sick. And, I mean, I felt guilty, but it really wasn't until I was like, wow, the way I behave and the way I have to have my drinks at night is starting to scare even me. But
Mhm.
right up until that moment, I was like, what's wrong with other people that they don't need to drink every night or they don't want to? And I would get so mad if I would offer somebody a glass of wine at my house, or if we were out to dinner and a friend was like, no, thanks, I don't want to drink. I'd be like, what? Oh my
I
God,
know, it's an
why?
offense, yeah. Are you judging me?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm so interested. Okay. So prior to you quitting though,
Yeah.
you were all about the mom stuff. You had like a following, you were doing the ultimate mom challenge was your handle, right? And this was while you were drinking.
Yeah. So I started blogging about motherhood, I think in 2016, 2017. And, I quit drinking at the end of 2017, but I didn't talk about it until the end of 2018. I went a whole year before I even let my readers know, what was going on, and, in part, there was shame going on there, but also kinda what you were saying, I didn't know what the plan was. I didn't know if I was taking a break. I didn't know if, well, I didn't think I was an alcoholic, that's for sure, but I didn't know what this was. And I certainly did not want to make this huge announcement that I was breaking up with alcohol only to turn it around a couple months later. So this really felt like something to, one, be ashamed of, and two, to keep secret and anonymous. That's what I always saw with my dad in his recovery programs. Like, we didn't talk about it at home. We didn't acknowledge it. We just kind of quietly drove him to, his underground secret meeting. And then we picked him up when it was over. That's how I thought this whole thing worked. So it was this dark little secret I carried with me until one day, about a month before I was gonna hit my 1 year. I was in a writers group and somebody asked, like, let's just share things we're proud of. And another woman on the group said, I'm so proud to say I'm 6 weeks sober. And it was such a pivot for me to be like, Wait, we can be proud of that." And I was 11 months sober at the time, and that was so enlightening to me because it gave me such a fresh perspective on what I was doing, that this wasn't something to be ashamed of, that if anything, this has completely changed my life for the better. And at that point, I didn't want to go back. There was no fear of people finding out my dark, scary secrets, because this was a lifestyle choice by that point. And I was like, yeah, this is something worth sharing. This is something I'm excited about.
So, when you quit, when you had your rock bottom moment and thought you were having a stroke, what happened? What then? Like, I think this is a question a lot of people have. It's like, okay, I acknowledge that I think I might have a problem, but how do I just stop?
Right. And I didn't know, all I knew was I wasn't gonna go to AA meetings because 'cause I'm not an alcoholic. That's the
Right.
only thing I know with certainty. Um, but I went to the ER because I thought I was having a stroke, and it turns out it was just a panic attack. But I was so shaken, and my mom met me at the ER. I was so shaken up that I told her, I said, I have a drinking problem. And, I knew when I told her that I was, opening a can of worms. She was married to an alcoholic for almost 50 years. Like, this was not something she was gonna be like, "Oh, no, you're fine, honey." Like, she was gonna take this very seriously. So to me, creating that accountability connection right off the bat was probably the only thing that got me through those early hard days. And it's what I recommend to a lot of people. Anybody who is accountability driven, like, having some sort of accountability partner, can make all the difference. So while even though the only people who knew, like, I need to stop drinking, which is kind of how I put it. I did not go into detail. I did not say, like, yeah, I've been hiding alcohol away in my closet for, the last year. I just kept it real straight by the books. I have to quit drinking. And I told my mom and my husband, and I didn't tell anyone else. It was like 6 days before Christmas. And all I was thinking is, God dang it. I
Bad
could not have
timing.
picked a worse time to do this, but I had made this commitment. And I had told my mom, and I had to do this. So I don't recommend the way I did it. Like, you know, white-knuckling your early days of sobriety is not fun. It's not pleasant. Um, it was long and, scary and pretty isolating. Um, but I remember that Christmas morning being like, "It's pretty cool to not have a hangover right now." I remember the day after New Year's being like, "This is the first time in forever that I feel good on the first day of the new year." Like, it was these little moments where I was getting, um, little nudges from the universe that's like, "Keep going, keep going." And, if I were to do it all again, I would do it so different. I would have sought out a community right off the bat. I would have started reading the Quit Lit books right off the bat. Um, but I was, I guess, determined to do this my own way, and, I would get to all those. I would get to all those pieces in my recovery eventually, but I guess I needed to do it on my time.
When I quit drinking, so it was in '09. Uh, there weren't a lot of but a lot of the books out there were about pretty hardcore alcoholics. I even remember I read the book, Drinking a Love Story by Carolyn Knapp. Classic, love it now. At the time I read it, I wasn't sober, and I was really like, "Wow, she's an alcoholic. That's a hard drinking lady. She's going to the bar across the street from work." I didn't consider what I was doing, which was, uh going to lunch with my friends sometimes at work and having a glass of wine because we were TV writers. That's what
This is what people
TV
do.
writers are fun. Guys, come on, relax. Like we're having a glass of wine at lunch. It gets the creative juices flow. Like everything that I did was somehow different than what like alcoholics did.
Exactly.
My drinking with but when I look back at it, and I wonder if you feel this way too, when I would get together with other moms and they'd be like, let's have wine." I was usually the driving force of that, even though a lot of moms talked a good game about like, "Yes, I want a glass of wine." There were only a couple of other moms that I can recall that were as sort of hard drinking as I was, or who felt the wine was the most important part of the social gathering. Do you know what I mean? And when I look at it and I go, "Oh, I had moms that were like, 'Oh my god, guys, let's get a bottle of wine,' and then they would have 1 glass and then leave it."
Right. You have a drinking antenna, and it kinda directs you to where your people are, right? So, you're like, "Oh, I see one of my people over there." And you just naturally, um, find your flock that makes you feel like this is totally harmless. This is what friends do. This is what mothers do now, to the point where that nobody bats an eyelash that you're popping open champagne at, 8 in the morning because it's girl time, whatever it is. You can excuse anything if you find the right group of people. And I think when, and now I still have that antenna in that I can smell someone with a problematic um, drinking relationship like a mile away. Like, you can feel it, and now, they're not my people anymore, but it's more like, I remember that. I remember the discomfort, I remember the topping off when nobody's looking. um, I'm so glad I'm not there anymore, but it never really went away. Like, I still feel like, when you are driven by the power of alcohol, um you live differently. Uh, you think differently, you act differently, and things that you're doing or thinking about are things that other people, it doesn't even cross their mind.
Right.
Um, I call it the mental load of alcohol because, I mean, it is like this lead backpack we carry, that you don't know how heavy it is until you finally take it off.
Wow, that's a really interesting way of putting it. I agree. I mean, I thought that alcohol was making my life better and easier and you know, when I look back at my drinking, I'd always used it as somewhat of a crutch, to get through dating, sex, relationships, I guess, self-doubt, a lot of different things. But when I had a kid, all of that self-doubt, all of it came crashing down in a way that was exponentially harder than anything I'd felt I'd ever done in my life, and I know that you relate to this too. It's like the first year for me of having a baby was, I felt like I'd been, hit in the head with a hit by a truck, as people might say. I was just like, "I've been duped. People lied to me that this was just a thing people do, and they seem to have no problem with it," and every single aspect of motherhood felt hard to me, and I was like and then the fact that motherhood felt hard to me felt like a blight on my character, like the fact that I can't figure out what stroller to buy when everybody else everything, every choice felt impossible. Every breastfeeding, every aspect that seemed to come naturally to other people was harder for me. And I do remember thinking, thank God I have this thing that's like my own private time. I have alcohol, I have wine, I have this thing that blurs the edges a little bit and makes me feel, even if it's only for like a couple hours late at night after my kid's gone to bed, it makes me feel like, okay, I could do this, you know, my own little private cheering squad. And then when I discovered other moms who drank and I discovered blogs and I discovered, this community and blogs like Mommy Needs Her Wine and all that, I was like, that was felt like good news to me. But then it turns into bad news, and I feel like this is something that your book is about and that you've also experienced.
Yeah, motherhood intuition, I mean, I don't know if it just completely passed over my head or if that's just some made up concept to make moms feel like crap every time we don't have the answer. But, it just especially, like, my first child was colicky, he was a really hard child, um, and then to have postpartum depression on top of it, it genuinely felt like I did not get the motherhood gene. I am broken. Anyone could be doing this better than me. Uh, I celebrated, going back to work at 6 weeks postpartum because the daycare workers had far more experience with children than I did, and they would absolutely do a superior job to me. I mean, this is where, I this is where my head was, and there was this moment of liberation each night, come whatever it was, 5 o'clock, where me and my wine, had a little pity party, and for a little blip of time, I felt like a good mom, and I felt like I could maybe do this. And then, reality just would come right crashing right back in, but it did feel like this was the one thing I had going for me. And I can look back on that now and realize that little blip of time came with a tremendous cost that was sabotaging everything else in my life. Um, but I don't know even if I had the resources and education that I have now, I don't know if I would have been ready to hear that yet either. So, I think recovery comes to us when we are ready to listen, but um, I also feel like I missed a couple really important years of my kid's life being hyper focused on getting my next drink.
I mean, listen, I'm not a therapist, but I do like to give people a lot of unsolicited, advice. But I mean, that sounds like you're being hard on yourself, You quit drinking when you quit drinking, and I seriously doubt that you were, hammered in front of your kids all the time, and really missing out, You were still there.
Yeah, but I think alcohol's a depressant. I was struggling with a postpartum depression. So alcohol, was having long-term consequences, over my general mood and whatnot. I think I would have enjoyed motherhood more had I not been using alcohol every night as a crutch.
Maybe, but it's still gonna be hard.
Sure. It
You
wouldn't have
still
been seamless regardless.
you still have to read one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish like a fucking thousand times, you know?
Oh my god. Yes.
Drunk or
Uh,
sober, man, I skipped pages on that book because I was like, "They're too young. They don't know the difference. They don't have this book memorized. I'm gonna
and
read
then
every
they
3rd
do.
page."
Click, clack, moo, cows that type. I have the whole book memorized.
I mean, it's so funny because there are so many parts of motherhood that we don't talk about where in a photograph, it's a really sweet moment, and there's things that I look back on and I go, "Oh, I loved reading, While Mama Had a Quick Little Chat," which was one of our favorite books, but the reality of it is pretty boring. Like, actually reading the book over and over and over and over and going, "God, I wanna check my email," is reality for a
Yeah.
lot of moms.
No, it felt like so much of the time that the walls were caving in. Um, the isolation and loneliness of motherhood, even when you're never alone, it's hard to explain, but it it's a hard experience in general, and, you don't see that part on social media. We don't talk about that part, and then the worst part is when you connect with people or somebody finds you at the grocery store, they wanna tell you to enjoy every little moment, and you're like, "Are you kidding? Like, I would spend good money to get out at this moment right now and have a second to myself." But you can't say that.
No. And the new mom anxiety is so real, which and maybe it's for people like us who already are prone to anxiety, you know? But I just remember the pressure that I put on myself of like being in the grocery store and thinking I needed to be talking to my baby all the time because I'd read somewhere that you need to stimulate their brains.
Yes.
So I remember walking in Trader Joe's and going, and these are baby carrots. See, they're orange. And then just going, I look like a psychopath. And why do I feel like every moment of every day has to be like directed at my baby? Like, no wonder I was drinking so much.
Right. I mean, you're on 24/7, and the pressure's on because this is the most important job we'll ever have, and our children's future happiness, is in our hands right now. But yeah, you can only learn so much baby sign language before you're like, "I'm done. I didn't realize what I was signing up for here."
I had to outsource that to those Baby Einstein videos. I was like,
Oh,
"Listen, I was a C student in high school, so, like, let's have Baby Einstein
help us
start
out
my
here.
baby up." But so okay, so you have this ultimate mom challenge, and you're trying to show people some of the real moments, right?
Well, yeah. I
And
mean,
then
the
you
real
quit
social
drinking.
media.
Yes.
Yeah,
Then you quit drinking, and your agent you get an agent, and your agent says and you're gonna write a book called Ultimate Mom Challenge.
yeah.
Then your agent's like, "Hold on, this is the book."
Yeah, so December 18th is my sobriety date, and when I hit my one-year mark, I posted my very first post that, "Hey, surprise everyone, turns out I had a drinking problem. I'm 1 year sober, I bet you didn't guess. I worked really hard so you wouldn't suspect this." And it blew up, which was really interesting because again, part of me was like, "Nobody wants to hear about this." You know, everybody was blogging about how to be a good mom. Nobody was actively, um, publicizing their failures that I was aware, the ones I was following. So I didn't think people wanted to hear about this, but it turns out they did. And yeah, my agent, as we were actively work on this proposal for the Ultimate Mom Challenge, which was my 1 year journey on trying to be a better mom, she emails me maybe the next day after I posted that and said, um, "This is your book." Like, oh, sorry, somebody just rang the doorbell. Let me just let them out. She said, "We have to put the Ultimate Mom Challenge to the side because this is what your book needs to be about." And at first, I was kind of like, I don't want to write a book about recovery. Like, that sounds awful. And I'm still just figuring it out. And I don't even know if I have a drinking problem, like all these
Right.
things. But with time, and as we start putting the proposal together, the more I realize, oh my God, she was absolutely right. Like, this is what I want to be talking about now. This is what people want to hear me talk about now. Oh, and the Ultimate Mom Challenge, like, was all leading up to me getting to this point. So it was very enlightening to reach that place. Is the dog barking screwing with your audio?
Can't hear it.
Oh, good. Okay. So that's how the book process started. Now, it would be another, what, 4 years till the book came out, because that's just how the whole thing works. And COVID happened in the middle of that, which I'm kind of grateful for the timing, because COVID became a big part of what was happening with mommy wine culture, but also what was happening in the recovery space. So, um, so much changed in the process of writing the book, but I feel like it was all designed uh, for the book to come out when it did, and the story to have the power that I think it does have.
Tell me more about COVID affecting mommy wine culture.
Yeah. So when COVID hit that March of 2020, the majority, if not all, I guess all the schools shut down. And the entire world, it seemed like, looked at mothers and said, okay, this is on you now. You got to figure this out, regardless of if you're working or not. Like, it was just the most strange and unfathomable place for us to all be in. And for working moms, I'd say, and teachers buried the or carried the brunt of that. So, how did we handle it? It seems like not only did many of us turn to alcohol, because if you look at the statistics, alcohol rates skyrocketed, but companies and the alcohol industry jumped on this concept of moms, specifically everybody, but specifically moms drinking to get through this time. We remember this whole thing with Tropicana having this commercial of a woman hiding in her closet with her mimosa, that she's using Tropicana orange juice with to get away and to escape from the COVID madness of her home. So that was one example, but uh, it became this this means of selling more alcohol to specifically women, because women carried the brunt of the unpaid labor during COVID.
Yeah, that's so true. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Is
Hold on. Bob, no. Sorry, my
that your dog or
dog
your
was
husband?
my dog. Yeah, my dog is eating he's new. We've had him 3 weeks.
Oh,
He's eating a cushion, which
oh
I was
boy.
just having to let him do because what am I
Right.
gonna what but it was getting too much and too loud. But anyway, yes, that's so interesting. And then it is so true that a lot of the labor of the homeschooling and the well, it wasn't homeschooling, but the kids doing their work from home was kind of on us. It added to all of the pressure and probably added to the isolation. I mean, it did add to the isolation,
Yeah.
obviously, but I bet you I do know several people, though, who got sober during COVID. So maybe it drove some people to realize they have a drinking problem.
Yes, I do think it drove a lot of people to their own personal rock bottoms. My friend Emily started a recovery group for moms during that time, and I started hosting with that group. And we right off the bat, moms were joining our recovery group who were brand new to the concept of recovery, brand new to the concept of community, and just straight up desperate for support because their drinking was not only getting out of hand, but there was no reprieve for them to then recover during the day because during the day they had to help their kids with homeschooling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. If you had to do it all over again, you would have found some community, but did you eventually find community?
Yeah. So when my friend started that recovery group for moms, I joined in as a host at that point. And that was my first experience with meetings or recovery. And I've been hosting and participating in recovery groups online ever since. I've been hosting for a mom community for uh, almost 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just part of my lifestyle now. But I think prior to COVID, when recovery meetings weren't online, I think it was a huge hindrance for moms. I remember when I first quit drinking, um, and I was connected to somebody in a 12-step program. They told me to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. And I was like, I have a 1 and a 3-year-old. Like, I'm not going to 90 meetings in 90 days. And while I applaud people who can do that or who do that, the change that happened in the pandemic where a lot of recovery meetings went online has been so important for mothers. Um, it's been pivotal. And I think it has made the opportunity for recovery so much more achievable for many of us.
Yeah. You know, years ago, well, during the pandemic, I I attend a okay, at the beginning, same as you, when I got sober, when I was day 1, I had 2 one-year-olds. Well, they were 18 months old, so they were 1, and a 4-year-old. And I, also heard the 90 and 90, and I was like, you're drunk if you think that I could possibly do that. I can't." So I did as much as I could. I've really learned with 12 step, and I talk about this a lot on this podcast, that the pressure we put on ourselves, when we're drinking, but then also when we get sober, we have to do it so perfectly. And you don't. Like,
Yeah,
it's all suggestions. Nobody, in case anybody wants to try 12 step, there's no real rules. Yes, there are suggestions, and you can say, like, yeah, sorry, I can't do that. That's just what it is. Um, but when I was during COVID, I was asked by a magazine to write an article about online meetings. And I was like, "Ugh, I've never been to one." Um, so I went to my first one and I was so scared. I don't know why it felt more terrifying than going to one in person, but I don't know. There was something like weird about it. And so I looked it up and I figured it out and I went to my first one and I was like, this is genius. Oh my
yeah.
God. I could do this all the time. Anytime you have a spare hour.
Yeah,
And they became really a lifeline for me because a lot of my regular meetings were not held anymore. In fact, some
right.
of my favorite meetings just went away permanently. I
Yeah.
just stopped having them.
It's
So
genius. It is genius. And for moms who are in the car all day, I mean, I can't tell you at least half of the attendees on my meetings are in the car, video off, muted, just listening.
And that's the way to do it. I mean, if you're just getting started, if you're just, getting your feet wet, if you feel intimidated or uncomfortable or nervous, um, you can just be a fly on the wall and get a taste for it. Um, that I wish this existed when I first quit. And now that it does, like, I just think it is such a gift for all of us, myself included.
I just think it's really important. The thing that I love the most about meetings is the me too feeling that I get. Anytime I hear somebody's story that sounds at all like my story, it reinforces that I did the right thing by quitting, that our lives are better. I've never heard anybody speak at a meeting and just say like, getting sober just was really one of the worst decisions of my life. Like things are so much worse. I've never heard anybody say that. Like everybody's life is somehow better, even if it's only better in the way that they're not drinking and their life
Mm,
sucks. Like it's only going to suck more if you're adding alcohol to whatever's going on in your life. That's how I feel. So anytime you can go to a meeting, like that's what I'm getting out of it. I'm hearing, oh, somebody else who feels the way I always hear something
yeah.
that helps me, which is like, and look, people don't have to go to meetings, of course. And that you can get that also out of reading books. But the most important thing I think is that we're out here, you, me, people like us telling our stories so that other people who are like, but I don't have a rock bottom. I'm not sure, can go, oh, even if you're not sure, it's okay. It's okay to want to stop drinking and it's okay to acknowledge, hey, I might have a problem.
Right. And hearing each other's stories will not only encourage you, but help you feel like the position you're in or the way you're feeling is super relatable. And a lot of us have been there or are there now. And that's very validating because addiction is so isolating. To have the validation and the relatability is such a game changer in those early days where, for me at least, I wanted to just crawl into a cave and sleep, like hibernate through the early period, because I just didn't know who to talk to or where to go, or who could possibly understand. But there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. So when did the book come out? The book is out and it came out.
It came out in 2023,
Okay. So a couple
so
years
it's
ago.
been
So
a couple years.
tell us the name of the book again, the name of
It's
your
not
book.
the name is It's Not About the Wine,
Yeah.
The Loaded Truth Behind Mommy Wine Culture.
Yes, I love that. And all your handles, all your social media is Ultimate Mom Challenge.
The Ultimate Mom Challenge. Yeah. I would change it, but I'm really lazy. And I don't know what would be involved. So I'm like,
It's perfect. And you also do sober coaching. You have a lot going on.
yeah, I mostly got my sober coaching certificate. So when I wrote about recovery, I was saying smart things and I wasn't veering people the wrong direction. Now, I mostly just I'm on social media for fun. I write. I have a Substack, and I am home with my kids quite a bit. My oldest has special needs, and my youngest is just high energy. So it's a full time job in and of itself.
You didn't get anything easy.
No,
But I think
no.
I've met a lot of moms who have kids who are on the spectrum or the ADHD and all the
Yeah.
stuff. And I've never heard anybody say that drinking would make that easier.
No, if anything, that was one of the strongest validations I had in my recovery. Like, I could not parent the way my kids needed me to parent under the influence, and my kids had significant needs. Like, maybe I would have been able to coast if they were the supposed easy children, but that's not my reality. And there was a lot of times where the universe was telling me I had to step up my game. And that meant, not waking up every morning with a hangover.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a great note to end it on. So, all of your stuff will be in the description of this episode. I thank you so, so much for giving me your time. And I hope this helps some people out there. And thank you for listening to Drunkish. And we will see you next week.